Happy Mercury Day, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Star Watch, which is a weekly astrological transit report for the week of August 31st. All right, everybody, let's get into this chart for August 31st. But real quick before we do, I just wanted to do a quick announcement letting you know that the September tarot card reading, the big monthly that I do, will be published tomorrow. Okay, it's processing right now and it should be uploading all throughout the night. So at some point tomorrow, I will be publishing that. If you are a subscriber of any level, whether you've subscribed just to a single sign or to all 12 zodiac signs, or if you are a member of my Soul Seekers group, you will receive an email with a link for those comprehensives as soon as they are made available. So bear with me on that. Thank you for your patience. Had a family reunion throughout August, so it was just I got a little bit behind, but we're getting all caught up now. And see below, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to waste your guys' time, but read below regarding my new website and the subscriptions and all of that. I know that some people have, only a handful of people, majority no issues at all, but a couple of people have had some issues with the renewals that have come due. Like if you subscribed at the end of July, now end of August, it's starting to kind of try to renew the subscription, and there are some issues with the cards because for whatever reason they were not saved. So anyway, read below. I don't want to go into it too much, but we will get it all rectified and fixed for you, but we may need to kind of go a little bit one-on-one on that on a personal level. Okay, so let's go ahead and delve right into this chart. Okay, sorry, my mind was just going somewhere else. Thank you, all this Mercury energy. My brain is just like in the clouds. All right, so here we have the Sun at 8 degrees of Virgo as of August 31st. We have Mars coming into his shadow phase this week. So as of September 4th, which is the day before Venus comes into Virgo, Mars enters his pre-shadow phase. Okay, so when he hits 8 degrees of Gemini, he's officially in shadow. So a lot of the interesting Mars retrograde themes will begin to emerge. Now he's going to be in shadow phase for a couple of months because he doesn't go retrograde until the very end of October. So he's going to be, bringing things up and kind of foreshadowing a lot in your life. And this is not the best time. Now last week, I talked about how it was a great time to commit. And it was kind of like that last week before Mars enters shadow where you can fully be in it with something and fully commit to something. Well, once Mars hits that shadow, it's going to be a lot more difficult to do that. The only thing that you can really commit to during this time, or that you should really commit to and expect longevity, is things within yourself, like your own convictions, your own ambitions, your own goals. Now you can still work with people, but I wouldn't recommend getting into long-term agreements and contracts, okay? Because not only is Mars in shadow, and it's common that things that are initiated during these types of transits tend to fade away, or people flake out, or it's way more complicated and people just say, screw it, I'm done, that kind of thing. It's not only that, but also Venus coming into Virgo. Remember, Venus is the ruler of Libra, Taurus and Libra has a lot to do with contracts and agreements and kind of that legal commitment to something. And when she comes into Virgo, she comes into her fall position. So I'm not going to say that she's weak here, but she's not in her strength. She doesn't have the support of her domicile, right? Last week, I described the Virgo domicile as being kind of like a factory or a warehouse, like with an assembly line. It's like walking into Ford Motors in the early 1920s, and you have all these people on the assembly line putting the pieces of the cars together. It's logical, it's rational, and it's hard work. And Venus, she wants to be relaxed and in her luxurious place. She doesn't want to go to work. She doesn't want to put on her dirty boots and roll up her sleeves and get her hands dirty. That's not what Venus is about. So she's, kind of out of her element here. And so when she's out of her element and Mars is coming into shadow phase, it may be difficult to really jive with things. Not to mention, the sun is coming off of a square with Mars, and Venus will be making her way into a square with Mars. And remember that squares are not the most free-flowing or easy aspects. These are challenging aspects to a degree, and they amplify one another. And so usually with a square, I often feel like it's hard to find the balance between the two. On one hand, Mars in Gemini wants to go and be so creative and go communicate and go be social and go and do all of these things. But Venus, who is trapped in a domicile that she doesn't really want to be in, it's like, oh, but I really got to do the work, and I really got to, put my head down, and I got to kind of deny myself some things that I normally would enjoy for the sake of the long-term goal. So it may not be the most comfortable time this week as these transitions are being felt, but it will be productive, because with Venus in Virgo, it's she will do the work because she values the work. Of course, with Venus, it represents what's truly valued. It represents the value of what is being built. And because she values that, she is willing to do the activities, as uncomfortable as they may be, she is willing to do the activities that are required in order to attain that goal. So when you are moving forward in your life, and when you are really looking at your goals and you're asking yourself what's truly worth it, and what is worth the sacrifices, because when she's in Virgo, she does aspect Pisces, and so does the sun. The sun is also aspecting Pisces. And remember, at the beginning of August, when I published my August tarot card readings, a lot of those readings had messages of reallocation. And we had to reallocate resources from one pile and move them into another pile, or one endeavor and move it to another endeavor. And because of that reallocation, I think that the sacrifice and loss component of Pisces as the opposite sign is starting to really come into focus. Are you sacrificing potential income for the sake of growing something else? Are you sacrificing a potential relationship for the sake of being able to grow and evolve on your own? Or what is it that is being sacrificed right now? Because if you have in clear focus what needs to be sacrificed, it actually brings more meaning into the tasks at hand, because it starts to, it's like, well, I paid a price for this. I'm invested in this now. I'm locked in. I can't just flakily go away as Mars and Gemini may want you to do. And I have recommended, it's okay to be flaky, but it's not okay to be flaky with yourself. It's okay to flake out on other people right now, because it's just going to be hard to lock in. But you can always lock in with yourself. There is no astrological environment that is going to prevent you from being in tune and aligned with your heart. That's always that's the one constant thing in this world. Okay, so this is what all the Virgo energy is really about. And as Mercury starts to slow way down, remember, he's going retrograde on the 9th. And on the 9th, he is stopping at 9 degrees of Libra and starting to go retrograde. So right now he's slowing down. He's in pre-shadow. So he is offering us the opportunity to rethink something. And I'm talking slow now all of a sudden. Mercury retrograde, of course. We're rethinking something. We're restructuring. We're doing that because we need to change the way we perceive. If you are experiencing a sacrifice of some kind, and you're feeling bad about that sacrifice, and you're more focused on what has been lost rather than what could potentially be gained, this is your opportunity to flip the script within yourself and say, okay, I know that maybe I'm really scared to lose this thing or to lose out on the potential of something, but I'm going to rewire my brain here and say, but look at what I'm gaining. If you can't look at the positive or the ultimate growth and expansion that is likely for you during this time, you may be struggling, because Virgo can be highly self-critical. But the beautiful thing about that, it can be really self-critical, and it can go one of two ways. It can go really negative, and you can be brutal with yourself to the point where you become debilitated because you are so like harsh, right? And maybe even abusive toward yourself. Or you can use that to say, okay, I accept my reality. I accept where I am. I accept the circumstances. And if you can't come into acceptance of the circumstances and you want to live in some kind of illusion of some kind, it's going to be really hard to leverage yourself in any way to build something, because you're just going to kind of fall into this trap of like, well, I can't do it because of all these reasons. So Mercury retrograde here to really help us, or Mercury pre-shadow rather, here to help us to rewrite the script from which we are operating, to make our life easier and to make things seem more possible, especially because this Mercury is now opposite of Jupiter. Okay. He's also in a beautiful trine actually with Mars, which I actually really like, because the ability to think things through is quite powerful. So this is a marker of being able to utilize your mind to your benefit. Like, this is such magician energy, magician of actually purposefully generating certain frequencies within your mind, because it all begins up here, right? It begins up here and it begins in here as well, in our heart and our mind. And when these things are really working together, we have this coherence. And when we have coherence, and I actually like the opposition with Jupiter here, because it lends us to believe. Jupiter is so much about belief, right? And so the Jupiter rules two signs, right? Sagittarius and Pisces. And the motto for Sagittarius is I see, and the motto for Pisces is I believe. So when we kind of put these two things together, there's a high perspective with Sagittarius, and there is a belief with Pisces, meaning I can operate from a high level perspective and I can see the big picture here. And when you can see the big picture, the loss and the sacrifice that Virgo and Pisces sometimes have a lot to do with, it's not so bad, right? It actually has meaning. And when we make sacrifices, remember that the meaning of that word is to make sacred. So when we are giving something up, we are actually making something sacred. And that thing that we are sacrificing becomes that much more special and meaningful, which means that this new thing that we're focusing, it must be done and performed and created with a sense of honor and pride and dignity and love, which makes it more powerful as well. So and I know that's really hefty and really lofty, but I can't help it when Mercury, my ruling planet as a Virgo, plus I have my Mercury in Virgo, I can't help it when it's opposing Jupiter. Okay. Plus I've got my Sagittarius in the third house. So that's just how I think. We always have to, it's always easier anyway. It's easier to elevate and operate from a more lofty perspective, because then the small minutia of things doesn't necessarily matter all that much, right? When you're assembling the car, it's not about the drudgery of putting one piece together. It's more about the beauty of the end product, which is this incredibly useful tool, which can make our lives so much better and so much easier. All right. So there is a point to all of this madness, if you will. And maybe it feels like madness a little bit. Okay. And we also want to point the fact out that, when the sun is in Virgo, it's kind of squished in between Leo and Libra. Now, when the sun is in Leo, it is in rulership, meaning this is the height of power. And this is the only sign of the sun's rulership. Like, it's exalted in Aries, but that's not a rulership. It just is strong there. But it does so well in Leo. But in Libra, right, as Libra is the opposite of Aries, it's in fall. So it's going from rulership to fall, and Virgo is that transition. Not to mention that the beginning of Libra season is also the vernal equinox or the autumnal equinox, right? This is that point where darkness starts to overcome the light, and the sun is the light. So the sun is kind of in this mode of preparing for the winter. Again, Northern Hemisphere references. Sorry, Southern Hemisphere. I know that this is a little different for you, but you can use it, swap it, make it opposite for your seasons as well. But as it moves into the winter time, right? Libra, Scorpio, Sag, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, these 6 months, really, the sun has to sustain itself. And it's kind of like little chipmunks going around and gathering nuts to prepare for winter, or bears eating a whole bunch of food to prepare for hibernation. That's what Virgo is. It's going and collecting all of the nuts, to make sure that it can really survive, and make sure that it can still shine bright, and it can still preserve its energy for the months to come, until Aries season, when the sun really comes back to life. So that's why Virgo season is such an important season. And it's one of the reasons why we feel rushed. And Mars in Gemini is not really helping that situation at all. We're feeling rushed. We're feeling like, oh my gosh, we have to do all this right away. Yeah, because we can tell. Right? Our bodies are attuned to the planet, whether we like it or not. So this feeling of I don't even know why why do I feel so urgent? Why do I feel this urgency with something? Why do I feel like I have to hurry up and take care of it? Because you do. You kind of do, So use that feeling of urgency to your benefit. It's not for the sake of just doing it fast, just to get it done and over with. It's doing it fast and doing it well, the way Virgo likes to do things well, so that it can be used to sustain you through the winter, through the fall and winter, through all of this change. Okay? Now, we still have a couple of weeks left, right? The sun is just only at the 8-degree mark, so it's got, 22 degrees left throughout the week. And we have this moon, which is starting to wax, and it's building up to a full moon, which is, now this, we'll talk much more about this next week. If you are a member of my Soul Seekers group, we're going to do another full moon in Pisces video coming up here this week as well. So stay tuned for that. But, we will talk more about the full moon in Pisces next week, when that's actually happening, which is on the 10th, by the way. And it's, as we make our way, let me just see. So till next Tuesday, which is September 6th, the moon is kind of in the moon comes into its fall position or its detriment position. Fall, just kidding, in Scorpio. And then it comes to fiery Sag, and then it comes into its detriment in Capricorn. So the moon this week is just kind of, first of all, I feel that there's a strong private world going on, that each of us has, this is a week where we can just kind of be in our enclosed places and just be busy little bees and staying out of everyone else's business, and kind of even just kind of cutting off the world to some degree for the sake of productivity. It is private world time. We got to go indoors here. It's kind of like the winter phase of the month when the moon comes through these signs. And then it makes its way into that conjunction with Pluto. And every month when it does this, it is going to be reminiscent of the moon in July, which is like the point of no return. So every month until next year, really actually till 2024, when the moon comes in contact with Pluto, it's just pushing that point of no return further and further and further, meaning we are expanding bigger and bigger and bigger. I know we can't always perceive it because we're living day to day. We can't always perceive that, but you'll notice because of these moon cycles, which again, year after year, it's not just like only the next few months. I mean, this is really going to be happening until Saturn comes into Aries in 25 and 26 with Neptune. But these are the years of great turnover for us. And it's starting now. It started in 2022. Next year in 2023, we have a lot of lessons that we can learn with that. And then 24, we have a lot of reward that we can reap. All right. So there's going to be some really cool things that happen, but we have to allow ourselves to let go of things right now. And we have to allow ourselves to say, okay, I can't ever go back. I accept that. I accept the fact that I can't ever go back. Plain and simple. Okay. And so that's one of the reasons why you have the determination through Virgo season to continue soldiering on. And Mars in Gemini actually is aiding in the lack of density, meaning you can move forward very quickly over the next 7 months. You can make great strides because Mars is not like trying to soldier through sludge. It's like being in battle, like in a low valley meadow after it's rained, everything is muddy and slippery and your feet get stuck. Or are you going to be on like firm ground? Right now, I feel like he's on firm ground where he has a little bit of traction and he can just like go and run, because he's got something under his feet that he can really use. So this is really cool. And I know that a lot of people's patterns have been interrupted, but I actually think that's a good thing. I do. I think it's a really good thing to have your patterns interrupted because that's when you change, and there are going to be myriad opportunities for change. Okay. As this Uranus North Node conjunction absolutely is attesting to. So I think that's everything. We'll talk more about that full moon next week with our video next week. It's going to be conjunct Neptune, so there's going to be a lot to say about it. And it may be an emotional week. It's probably the only time in September where we actually have really strong emotion. Right now, I don't think that emotion is really getting in our way. We're not like all breaking down in all sorts of kind of strange ways just because we have this emotion rising up within us. But there may be a little bit of emotion that surfaces for the sake of release throughout that full moon. But after that, it'll be fine. Okay? All right, so I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you so much, you guys. You know how much I love and adore you. Have an amazing week. Thank you so much. Take care.